Beginners rejoice. I have a super simple impressionistic painting that anyone can do. Let's get going. Let's get right to it with some titanium white and phthalo blue mixture just to make a nice bright sky. I'm scrubbing that in with a number 10 bright just so that I can really push that paint around. The key here is really not to try to paint the individual leaves, but to paint blocks of color. The more detail you attempt to put in, the worse your painting's going to look. So keep it simple. I'm just using the corner of this number 2 bright to kind of punch in like the little petals in there. You know, again, I'm not trying to paint the individual flowers. I'm trying to just paint blocks of color. So I'm just kind of using that corner, turning it around, giving it a little flick just to kind of get that paint down. We'll switch to a palette knife in just a little bit, but I want to get these colors blocked in so we have kind of a basic shape from which to work later on. I'm just working from lights to darks. Generally speaking, I'll bounce around a little bit, but primarily I'm starting with my lightest lights and then I'll work down into the shadows. A note on the color here that I'm using. Every time that I go into the paint on my brush, I'm picking up a slightly different color than I had before. And you'll see that more dramatically in the next few minutes where I go into my darks. But generally speaking, you want a lot of variety in the color. So don't keep your colors all one homogeneous shade or, again, it's going to look flat and unbelievable. See, here I'm going into a little bit more dark color just to add a little bit more depth. And as we continue to go on through this process, you'll see that they'll take on a little bit more shape. Then when we switch to that palette knife, we'll be able to put the texture of the leaves on top of all of this color, and it'll really look fantastic. I think you're going to have great results with this. Here I'm just finishing up some of those little unopened buds that you have there, the flowers. You got to throw some of those in there because you'll find that all of the flowers won't open on the same day. So here what you're seeing is just more of the same. So we repeat the process throughout the flowers here. We go from light to dark. We add in our shadows by, I took and I'll put it up on the screen here for you, but I actually, as I was making these darker, we're adding just a little touch of phthalo blue into my naphthol red, brilliant pink light mixture in order to make shadows. So that's all you need to do. So when you see this darker paint coming up, I'm just adding blue into my naphthol red mixture in order to achieve that. So we'll just continue to build these flowers as we go along, and we'll take that out to the stem. Then we'll speed up some of the process because you don't need to see every stroke of this paint. But I wanted to make sure that at the beginning of this video, you saw the major strokes, the major colors that I was using. And really, you can improvise this painting so well just by painting in these big blobs of color. After I get the stem in or the branch in just a few minutes, you'll see this really start to come together. It doesn't look like a whole lot right now, but it will look like, I think, a pretty decent painting when you're done. So I'll just let you watch me do this in super high speed. And we'll get back to that branch. That branch will come in too. So I'll put all the colors up there for you so you know what I'm using when that branch goes in. The branch, unfortunately, did go in time lapse. Sorry about that. That was a mechanical error caused by a dummy who was running the camera, and that would be me. So sorry about that. But really, it's just a simple line. I used a number 4 angled brush in order to get that in. Again, I'll put that on the screen for you. The link to all the supplies you need for this are in the video description. We really do appreciate your support. If you could, purchase supplies from us, that helps us keep this content coming to you. Of course, we're a retail art supply business as well as, selling our fine art and teaching classes around the country. We really do need the support of a retail income. So we do appreciate if you could not run to the big box stores where you might save 30 cents because Amazon and all those other big box retailers aren't giving you the great content that we're given. So again, we really appreciate your support. Thanks so much. You may be thinking at this point, whoa, man, I just don't get this, right? I mean, but trust me, paintings come together in the end. So just stick with this. I know it doesn't look like much now, but it really is going to get better really quickly. As soon as that branch comes in, we're going to switch to that palette knife and we're going to make this thing rock. Right here, you're going to make a really big impact into the composition on your painting. It's going to start coming together for you in your mind as you get this branch in. Again, just a simple number 4 angle brush, just drew it in. You can use any brush that you've got, or you can, of course, grab the brush from the link in the description. Here, I'm just adding on a little bit of highlights to that branch because if you just put the Van Dyke or the burnt umber and ivory black mixture on there, that branch is really flat. So we need to give it a little bit of texture because the sunlight's going to hit it. It's got bark on it. So So, it can't just be flat. Here, I'm just kind of pumping in the stems that are going to reach out into the clusters of flowers out there. A nice little detail to kind of put in there. And then we'll actually build some flowers over this branch and over those stems. And that's what's going to come next as we switch to the palette knife. Here I'm just putting on some highlights using some golden ochre, yellow ochre. I'll put those up on the screen for you as well. And I'm just using a little signing brush just to get a little bit of detail in there. So that you see how small that brush is right there. It's actually a really fantastic little brush. And I use it often to punch in some little highlights. So out comes the palette knife now. And what I'm doing is I'm putting a thick layer of paint at the end of that knife. So what I'm wanting to do is to leave a lot of texture on top of the paint. So I'm using the background painting that we've already done, those blocks of color that we popped in earlier, to just lay in roughly the same color paint. Not exactly the same color paint, but roughly the same color paint in order to give a lot of texture. See, look at that texture. That paint is just sliding off the end of my knife. And then that gives the impression that there are small, because cherry blossom petals are so tiny, that gives you the illusion that there may be some petals kind of popping off that canvas. And you'll just work this through the rest of the painting just like we did before. When we were laying down the paint with the brush, the background paint with the brush. Here we'll come over here with this palette knife and we'll make this thing sing by going back and forth between our lights and darks to kind of fill in all the wonderful spaces. You can also use that knife, as I'm doing here, to kind of smoosh your paint around a little bit. So I'm wanting to move that paint a little bit because it was a little too intense. And so I want to, fuzz out the edges and blend it into the surrounding paint. And now here I've just done the same thing, very delicately laying that paint over the top of that branch. So be very careful that you have a lot of paint on your palette knife so that you're not scratching through that branch. Otherwise, you're going to mix a lot of mud. But you see my colors there are incredibly vivid, and it's because I was very, very delicate in getting that paint over it. And to finish up here on the branches, just to get some more of that texture, since we had so much texture on our flowers, I wanted to put some more texture with the palette knife, and just using some little bright highlights there. That's some yellow ochre pale and some titanium white mixture in there, just to get a few extra little highlights in there where I think the sun might smack it a little bit. I sure hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I hope that your painting is beautiful. This painting is already in a private collection, so thank you for the purchase. I really appreciate it.